Well, I want to thank everyone out there on their phones, on their computers, for checking out my YouTube channel. About 4 years ago, I put my first YouTube channel out into the internet, and the response was really strong, and so that made me want to share more of my information with the public. And over the last 4 years, we've had about 1.3 million views. That's been a lot of fun, and it's really been encouraging for us because it shows there's a lot of need out there for the information that we're sharing. So I just wanted to thank you for taking time out of your busy life to check out our channel. What I have in my hand is the next step in our evolution as a system of trying to communicate ideas to you. It's a book that we've written. It's called Your Genius Body. And really what it is, it's a summary of all the work that we've put into our practice, put into functional medicine over the last about 9 years. So if you like the ideas you see on today's video or some of the other videos on our channel, I would highly encourage you to get your hands on this book. This book is really a summary and a great reference for all the ideas that we use to help our patients as we share in these videos. So you can get this if you go to www.beyondmthfr.com, and you'll have an option there to purchase the book either in paperback, which is always a little easier on the eyes, or you can also download the digital version for your Kindles and iPads. So I hope you enjoy this coming video here, and then please stay tuned for the end. We'll have a special message for you at the end of the video as well. You know, today is kind of a mini compressed lecture on gut health and brain health. And this subject is so big that we could probably talk about it 8 hours a day for a month straight, and we'd still have years of study in front of us to really get our heads wrapped around it. Just 60 random people, and they measured how many different strains of bacteria were in 60 different people. It's 2,300 strains. 2,300 different strains of bacteria in 60 random belly buttons. So how many different strains are in your gut? I don't even think we know yet. We don't even know. There's thousands and thousands of species. You know, life is pretty amazing when you look at it the right way. But this was published a few years ago, but it came on my radar recently, and I just thought that kind of captures it. If there's that much variation just in belly buttons, I mean, your gut's 26 feet long, and it's as big as half a tennis court. I mean, how much difference are we going to have between all of us and our gut? Everybody's gut's going to be as unique as our face. Yeah? A lot of different variations out there. So as we go through this talk, again, the purpose of this is to give you a different perspective on healing your gut. Like I said in the beginning, lots of good videos on probiotics and fermented foods and enzymes, and we've even put videos out on that. I want to give you just something actionable tonight that helps you think about what you need to do to fix a problem for yourself or maybe someone in your life. I don't think that we treat mental health effectively in our country. I don't think so. I mean, I just saw a video it was called like Seattle is Dying. It was this dramatic video produced by one of the news channels in Seattle, but all the mentally ill people on the street, I mean, it's shocking what happened. What are we doing to help these people, you know? But depression and mental health issues are on the rise. And so this is 2013, and that's 2016 in blue. So you can see just in 3 years, things have changed clinically. And so this is from Blue Cross Blue Shield's data, not published peer-reviewed data necessarily, but you know, they have the read on how these services are being rendered because they're the data clearinghouse. Everybody who's getting treatments, running it through insurance, and the insurance company knows. Okay, so we're seeing more depression. We need to figure out why. Okay, especially in young adults, it's increasing, and that's why we're here tonight, because we may have lived that ourselves, or we may have loved ones or people in our family who are dealing with this. Okay? This is not a serotonin deficiency. This is not an SSRI deficiency. This isn't you need to go and take pharmaceuticals for the rest of your life. You need to think logically about why this is happening. What can we do? What do we know about science that could help us help these people who have depression and mental health issues? Is it their fault? Are they making bad choices? Or do they have something wrong with their chemistry in their brain that's because they have something wrong in their gut that's making their brain, making it impossible for their brain to find equilibrium because the gut isn't functioning? I'm in that camp, right? Again, basically, if we disrupt the gut, we increase neurologic problems. The diagnoses, the number of people being treated for mental disorders is not growing because we're coming up with new diagnoses. Nothing has changed in the last 70, 80 years. What's changing is that we're hurting our intestines more aggressively now than maybe we ever have. And that's changing brain function, okay? So we're going to be looking at that lens tonight. That's really the concept, is what's going on in our gut and how that affects our brain. And I'm just a detail-oriented person, and I can agree with this statement, but it doesn't tell me how that happens. And I want to give you some of that information tonight. All the research is coming out. I shouldn't say all, but a large majority of it, most of it is looking at gut in some way. They're looking at gut and heart disease, gut and stroke, gut and cancer, gut and Alzheimer's, gut and dementia, gut and Parkinson's, gut and and autism, whatever. It's all gut-based. And what the research is saying now is fairly bold. They're saying things like microbiota, gut-brain axis dysfunction. You know, they're scientists. They're not Shakespearean writers. If you mess with the bugs in your gut, it's the main reason why, the main pathophysiology for depression. So they're saying this pretty clear. They're saying if you mess with your digestive system, you hurt the bugs that you need, you have bugs that you don't need, you begin to change things in your body that is not only the main cause of major depression, but it's the main thing that we should be treating. That's what they're saying. I think that's cool. We need to be looking at this. Another data point basically says the same thing. I think this is maybe looking at schizophrenia, perhaps. Yeah, autism and schizophrenia. But basically, again, the gut microbiota are changing brain function. We have another data point I don't have in here, that if you give someone certain probiotics, they get more white matter in their brain. They've seen that. So they do an MRI, they give them all these probiotics, do a therapy, go back, and then the white matter, there's greater amounts of white matter in the brain. Your brain got bigger because you put the correct bugs in your gut. That's kind of cool. So the research is in agreement with this idea. This slide is just to show you that basically after conception, as we grow in utero and then when we're born and we grow through our younger years, our brain and the length of our intestine and our gut and our gut bacteria, they're all changing kind of together. They're like one system, okay? So it's maybe hard to see, but basically what this shows you is years. So this is, birth, 3 years old, 18, 65. And there's some changes that happens throughout your lifetime, but they kind of group the brain, the microbes all together, and they just show that as we go through life, as we mature as people, well, our gut changes and our brain changes together. So they're linked. They are linked. We cannot damage our brain without having an effect on your gut. People with traumatic brain injury can wake up and have, horrible gut problems as a side effect of their head injury. But more often, it's people with gut problems that are beginning to get brain fog and cognitive issues and energy issues and motivation issues and depression and anxiety and sleep. And it's not like it goes 180 degrees overnight. It's just that it starts and nobody sees the signs or intervenes, and it goes and it goes and it goes until they're at or close to rock bottom. And that's, obviously as a doctor, it's easier to find a problem when you're at rock bottom, right? The average person out there finally kind of puts the pieces together and goes, maybe this isn't right, I need some help. So that makes sense. But again, working on the gut's going to change the brain. How do we know this? Well, the medical research shows us that one of the side effects of antibiotics are literally neuropsychiatric problems. Okay? There are cases in the literature of people taking antibiotics and having crazy reactions. Psychosis, anxiety attacks, depressive disorders, wacky stuff. What does the antibiotic do? Well, it kills your healthy bacteria rapidly. So you change your gut, you change your brain, and in some people they can have some pretty nasty side effects. I mentioned earlier that Roundup is an antibiotic. It has 3 patents. The first patent for Roundup was as a chelator. Okay? So it chelates minerals so rapidly, like manganese and molybdenum, that it kills the plant because the plant needs those minerals in order to function, its cellular environment. So when the Roundup hits the plant loses access to the minerals, the plant dies. Okay? That's a fair statement. But with further study about the mechanism of this stuff, they figured out that it's actually a really good antibiotic. So we are spraying antibiotics on our food, and then we're giving it to our kids after we give them dozens of other things that are super toxic. And these kids don't. We have an obligation. I have young kids. I'm a parent of young children. We have an obligation to do a better job. And when a parent wants their child to have a better opportunity, a better life than they had, usually, most parents would agree with that statement. But we see with our life expectancy, we're going like this. Now, I think some people are going to go like this, and I think there's a whole other group that's going to go like this. And it's a choice. You educate yourself, you take responsibility, and you own these ideas, and then you can create some more health in your family and in your life. This woman is a great researcher. She's kind of I wouldn't say she's a friend of mine, but she's an acquaintance, and I have a lot of respect for what she does. And she's published over, when this was written, it's probably higher than that, maybe 180 peer-reviewed studies. And she's an MIT, Massachusetts Institute of Technology. She's a PhD in computer science. So she's really good with numbers and data and finding patterns and random data. So she took that big analytical ability and she looked at autism and began to find some connections that nobody had seen before. Okay? So based on her research, this chart was generated. And so you see the year 1990, there's not a lot of yellow bars. Yellow bars is tons, thousands of tons actually, of glyphosate. Like I said, I'm lucky. I wasn't a junk, when I was a junk food addict, food was a little safer. But it's not the case anymore, okay? Because starting around 2000, you have this big push, and look at 2009, right? And the problem is that this red line represents diagnoses of autism. So the correlation mathematically between the amount of Roundup that's sprayed and the number of children with autism is 0.997, which is mathematically almost 100%, right? That is an extremely high correlation, extremely high. So I get it, ground up, increased yields, blah, 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 If you just look short term, you can see some benefit, but you have to also check the long-term consequence, and maybe there's a better idea out there. I would think that there is. The other problem with Roundup and hurting your gut, not only is it an antibiotic, but the way it kills plants is by blocking this pathway, okay, called shikimate, which, I guess it's named after somebody or means something, but it's the shikimate pathway. And Roundup blocks this, and if that gets blocked, then the plant cannot make tyrosine, phenylalanine, or tryptophan. This is what our plants in your front yard make. They make those amino acids just like you need them in your brain. So it's true when the people that make this stuff say, well, humans don't have this chemistry. This is not in our body, so therefore the Roundup is safe. Okay, you get a point for a technicality. But your gut bacteria do have this pathway. If you eat food with this stuff on it, it is killing the bacteria in your gut by this same mechanism that it kills weeds. And you need bacteria in your gut to make tyrosine, phenylalanine, and tryptophan because you don't make that stuff. Does it make sense? If you kill the bacteria that produce this for you, you'll run out of these things. This is what depression could be for a lot of people. This is low serotonin, okay? This is low serotonin. This is low dopamine. If you take, we could blame a lot of that on Roundup just on this concept right here, okay? And again, this is just what the research shows. There's 95% of our serotonin is in our gut. We have this great thing called a blood-brain barrier. It prevents us from, stubbing our toe or dropping a hammer on our toe and having a seizure from the glutamate that's released. The blood-brain barrier protects us. So 95% of your serotonin is in your gut. Here's a pearl, okay? Serotonin causes diarrhea. It causes cramping and loose poop, okay? The reason that peppermint is used is peppermint is an anti-serotonergic herb. So when someone has the tummy troubles and they go, man, I'm upset, my stomach, it's bloated, I'll have some peppermint tea, boom, 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 have a few sips, my stomach feels better. Well, how does that work? Well, it works because they're having an inflammatory reaction to food, little leaky gut action. The serotonin levels are too high in the gut. It's uncomfortable, and they take peppermint, and it calms it down. So you'll never look at peppermint the same. You know it's an anti-serotonin compound. But we have 95% of our serotonin in our gut. We have 400 times more melatonin in our gut than we do in our brain. Okay? The blood-brain barrier. When you take melatonin, I'm not sure any of that melatonin gets into your brain if you have a healthy, functional blood-brain barrier. What melatonin does to calm you down is it tells your adrenal glands to not release cortisol and adrenaline, which makes you be able to go to sleep. That is an interesting fact. We give more people melatonin during the day in my practice, due to what I've learned from my teachers, than I do give people melatonin at night. And if you are a patient of ours and have questions about that, I'll explain why. But this is a little hint of what we're going to talk about in a minute. But any time of the day or night, the gut contains 400 times more melatonin than the pineal gland. That's pretty cool. Okay? But melatonin taken during the day for the right patient is a godsend for their anxiety and their high dopamine situation that they're in and their tension. And I have a video that explains that, but we're going to keep going. So the melatonin heals the blood-brain barrier. You can see this is pretty recent data, 2016, and what they're figuring out is if there's all these factors, cortisol, stress, alcohol, trans fats, glyphosate, roundup, whatever, Pop-Tarts, Frosted Flakes, you name it, all that good stuff. It causes low-level inflammation because it just irritates the gut enough to make little cracks in the gut, little pieces of food leak into your body, little dead bacteria pieces leak in, and it's not like you go to the hospital with a fever. You don't have any signs and symptoms. You're healthy, but you have low-grade inflammation all the time that's going to chronically change your body. It's going to hurt your brain, okay? It's true that we have a blood-brain barrier, okay? But what the immune system releases in your bloodstream does get into your brain. That goes straight across. So you don't have to have a brain infection to get a brain problem. If you just have a gut infection, that's enough to give you a brain problem, right? Point being here, the researcher goes, but look, gut melatonin restores the blood-brain barrier, or the blood-brain barrier, and it also helps the gut permeability. So we love melatonin. People say, don't take melatonin, it'll reduce your natural production. I've never seen a single study that said that, and I haven't seen everything. So if you have, I would love to see it. I'll change my opinion. But from what I can tell, if there's a slight chance that chronic melatonin use isn't that great for you, the benefits are enormous. So you just do the math, you're still 20 steps ahead, even if it causes a little bit of a problem. And I've never actually met somebody who was addicted to melatonin. You may be out there, but there's probably other things going on. So melatonin is one of the best tools available. So this is the big picture. Leaky gut causes brain inflammation. This is another, maybe easier to conceptualize vision. This red stuff is hot, aggressive, inflammatory. The blue stuff is like calming, okay? This is your blood-brain barrier. If it gets into the brain, you're going to have changes. You're going to have depression. You're going to have anxiety. You have difficulty focusing. You go play the big basketball tournament and you play horribly, or you take a test and you bomb it even though you're prepared for it, or your attitude stinks, or you can't get the promotion at work because you can't focus because you're losing your ability to remember numbers and people's faces, and just looks like you don't care, but you're really trying, but it's because you have brain fog, because you have a gut problem. And you can really change someone's life for the better when they have a healthy gut and a healthy brain. So many more things are possible. How we doing, guys? You hanging tough? All right, about 2/3 of the way through. I have an emotional attachment to this picture, and because we put it together in our practice, and it's helped me help a lot of patients, because it conceptualizes a model that's just hard to see unless you have a picture. So where I'm standing is low dopamine. Over here, as we go across, is high dopamine, okay? That's the x-axis. The y-axis is brain function. What you don't see is a line going up like this. What that means is, what that means is that the more dopamine you get better brain function up to a point, and if you keep increasing dopamine, you lose brain function. Does everybody understand how that looks? It's just a curve. The bell curve of dopamine. And you see these symptoms, low catecholamines, you get food cravings, you can read those, addictions, anger, really sleepy people. And then you can have people who are just stuck in this category. I have like 80% of the people I help are over here and 20% are over here. That's the way that my practice works. Okay? Women tend to be over here more, although we have both. Men tend to be on this side more, although we have both. And that has to do with hormones and how hormones affect your neurotransmitters. But this is where we're going with this talk, is to start to see that really the reason people go to doctors is because they don't feel well. The reason people have mental health problems, in my opinion, is mainly a problem with dopamine. Mainly a problem with dopamine. If you don't have enough dopamine and you can't methylate and you can't produce dopamine, you get labeled like severe depressed person. If you have too much dopamine and you can't turn it off, you get labeled a severe anxiety, nervous breakdown person. And those are very much non-technical terms. But they throw a lot of labels around. But to me, this explains what people are going through. And when we start to treat it clinically, the people over here that are low dopamine, they get moved to the middle, they feel better. People who are high dopamine, we intervene to help them move to the middle, they feel better. But everybody on this list, whether you're high or low, has a gut problem until proven otherwise. Everybody has a gut problem until proven otherwise. And so you have a gut-brain problem. Until proven otherwise, we need to determine if it's a bacteria problem, a candida fungus problem, or maybe a combination. This is just the basics that I want everybody to take home tonight. We can all agree that probably everybody you know in your life could have a better digestive system. And probably everybody you know, unless they've actively worked on this, if you test their digestive system with like an organic acid test, or some other test, like a functional medicine test, you'll find things until proven otherwise. I've never received a test back that was perfect. And I'll have a unique set of people who seek our help. But everybody has something going on in their gut. So it's confusing to the layperson. And I'm not extra smarter than everybody else, but I have had practice. That makes you better at something, right? If you practice it a lot, you do get better at something. So SIBO means small intestine bacterial overgrowth. And these are the symptoms: weight loss, weight gain, bloating, diarrhea, constipation, anemia, low vitamin D. There's many other symptoms. Frustrating problem. But look at the symptoms for Candida. Usually it's Candida albicans, but it can be other species. Usually it's Candida. Abdominal pain, distension, bloating, and diarrhea. And it could be 15 other symptoms. There's a lot of symptoms that you get from Candida problems. There's a lot of symptoms you get from SIBO. So my advice is find someone qualified to help you test it and figure it out. Save yourself time. But these are the two problems. You either could have one or the other or both. Now, your digestive system is an amazing environment. It's just kind of mind-blowing what happens down there. But the liver's main job in your body is to digest, or detoxify, I should say, not digest, but to detoxify the bowel. So, okay, I say, my skin is where I run into the external world, right? I might bump into, touch a door handle, I'm getting stuff on my hand, the wind blows, I'm getting environmental toxins from the diesel truck over there. But nothing comes close to how much exposure you get from your gut, right? Your skin is like, what, a few square meters? Your gut is 10 times the size in surface area. So much more of the environment and the outside world is coming into contact with you through your gut. So your liver's job is to detox the gut. That's priority number one. Sluggish liver, your gut will poison you. It will build up. The gut will be toxic. So these are some compounds that the liver comes into contact with: acetaldehyde, ammonia, and phenols. We're going to talk about these two, aldehydes and phenols. This is just kind of a brief overview of this idea. So when you have too much bacteria in your body, the bacteria are always pooping things out. That's what makes you fart. It's what makes things smell when it rots on the side of the creek, a dead fish. Bacteria releases gas through the action of cows farting methane, for example. This is where it comes from, bacteria. Well, the bacteria is producing all the many chemicals, and it's going into your liver, like we just said, right? Liver goes straight to the liver. Well, your liver is going to get clogged up with all these compounds because of all the extra bacteria you have. And so that may only show up as headaches, migraines, inability to focus, People label you depressed, people label you anxious, they may call you a bunch of different diagnoses. But the reason why is because your liver is clogged because of a gut infection that nobody has bothered to check. This picture just captures it perfectly. Your liver can detox almost anything, but it can't detox everything all at once. It has to have order, one truck at a time, or maybe 4, okay? But if you try to get 40 through at once, you have a problem. So our body, this is just a perfect analogy of what happens in our liver. This is another picture of that. And this is kind of the biochemistry. This is like dopamine or norepinephrine in your bloodstream. This is it in your urine, okay? So in order to go from your bloodstream to your urine, it has to go through like steps. And there's just all these places where these red circles basically mean when you have a gut problem, bacteria-based gut problem, you're going to slow down the removal of this chemical at these choke points, okay? So this can affect an enormous amount of things. This can affect how well you detox estrogen, your risk for estrogen cancer, estrogen-related cancer, I should say, your testosterone level. It could affect your sleep, your mood. This is a hugely important gene, PLMP. But it's like the bacteria just flood in and clog this thing up, so then it can't do the other work it's supposed to do in the rest of your body because you have a gut problem that hasn't been properly treated. Aldehydes, I mean, I might be wrong. I don't think I am, but I might be wrong. But all alcohol on earth we've ever had was made by a yeast organism. Every person on earth who's ever enjoyed a glass of wine or some spoiled fruit or some moonshine, whatever, it's always and only possible because yeast exists. So yeast produces alcohol. We all know that. You can't have alcohol without yeast. Alcohol, ethanol, turns into aldehydes. That can be kind of toxic. And we know people, I mean, we all know, you drink too much alcohol, that's a bad idea. These are the genes that get affected. You can check your report if you have that. But so this is one of the pathways that Candida stresses out. It stresses out so not that this is the goal in life, to be able to drink someone else under the table, okay? But if you have a Candida problem and you say, I can't handle alcohol, I don't know why, I used to be able to, but now for some reason I can't, this is what you should look at. Because if you have a lot of Candida in your body, the Candida is pooping chemicals into your system every second you're alive that's taking up the parking space that says reserved for alcohol. So now you have all these yeast toxins here in your liver, and the alcohol goes in your bloodstream and stays in your bloodstream way longer than it should, waiting for its time to go out of your body. Makes sense, right? So the brown arrow and the brown circle, this is where this is the same chart I showed you last time. There's the old red arrows, but now we're focused on the genes next to it. So if you consider both the bacteria and the yeast, really every gene, every enzyme on this picture is slowed down except for these two right here. So it's a choke point. The gut problems are leaking into your body, messing with your liver, which is going to have wide-ranging effects on your brain. Okay? Now I have histamine up here because this is also going to affect histamine. So people who have seasonal allergies, histamine sensitivity, redness, these symptoms, swelling, itchiness, and maybe they didn't used to ever have allergies, but they've gotten worse over time. We have to assume there might be a Candida problem. They may have a problem with aldehydes because we don't think about this enough, but histamine is a neurotransmitter. Okay? Histamine, dopamine, same thing, almost identical. They're monoamines. And so when you come into contact with histamine, you have this system that detoxifies it. But what you need to pay attention to is right here. It says aldehyde dehydrogenase. Okay? Or over here, aldehyde dehydrogenase. So no matter what happens to histamine, it ends up being totally detoxified by that. The last step is this aldehyde dehydrogenase step. And remember, that's what these brown circles are. So if you already have this clogged up from Candida and you get into seasonal allergies, your allergies are going to expand and get worse because that part of your liver that clears it is clogged. That's why we want to find out if people have a gut problem or not. Another negative side effect of alcohol consumption, I guess, especially excessive alcohol consumption, or having a yeast problem, is that it's pooping all this all these aldehydes get into your body, it slows down your methylation system. So people have these genes, MTHFR, MTRR, but that's just what the report says. If you have an environmental problem where there's just a bunch of candida on top of it, it gets much worse. So by treating the gut, you take the pressure off of these genes, and people's biochemistry speeds back up, and their brain feels better. They have more energy. They have more clarity. They're remembering people's names. They're being more creative. They're getting more done around the house. They're starting to plan for the future. They're more able to be themselves because they no longer have an infection in their gut affecting their liver, which is making their brain sick. Okay? One more time looking at the curve. So wrapping it all up, again, a lot of what I wanted to communicate tonight was just a little different take on the usual leaky gut, leaky brain topic, okay? Depression is getting worse. As a section of our society, we're under more stress, and there's more mental health problems that I think are just being poorly managed. So we have an opportunity to fix this. And for a lot of people, I don't think we'll ever make it go away completely, but I think we could reverse the numbers, and they go, hey, look great. 2019, depression numbers shrunk. In 2020, they got even better. And by 2030, we don't know what happened, but there's only a fraction of people left with depression because we used all these ideas to change the world. Ha, ha, ha. And, not too facetiously, we know that it can change the world, but it's going to be like one person at a time. So brain health depends on a healthy gut environment, okay? Many of the symptoms you experience in your brain that bother you, poor sleep or excessive sleepiness, anxiety, panic, worry, headaches, lack of focus, lack of energy, are related to gut problems, okay? The medical system, again, if you have a hole in yourself, you have a, third trimester baby that needs emergency surgery, they do a really good job. I mean, the best. But for actually managing people over time and fixing chronic problems, the worst. It's irony, right? GMO foods, overuse of antibiotics, oh my gosh, poor stomach function, lack of gut motility. And so really I wanted to just point all that out, that all these things kind of come down to figuring out whether you have SIBO or Candida or both. Now this is my favorite test I've ever seen for figuring out what's wrong with your gut. It's a urine test that you send your urine in. You get to wake up in the morning and catch your urine, send it with a frozen, container, send it into the lab. And what they do is they do organic chemistry on your urine, right? So they do mass spectrometry. They heat it up and they measure through this elaborate process all these little chemicals that come out of your urine, and they can figure stuff out. They can figure out if you have Candida in your gut. And they can also figure out if you have small intestinal bacterial overgrowth. This person, unfortunately, has both. They're a mess. They can't probiotic their way, kombucha their way, fast their way, and smoothie their way out of this mess. It won't happen. In fact, if this person took a bunch of kombucha, which I love, probiotics, fermented foods, they'll get worse. Because that is absolute world-class bug fertilizer. Do they have too few or too many bugs? They have too many. So you can't feed this stuff. You have to kill it. And take the weed whacker out and bring all these numbers back. So everywhere you see an H, this is one standard deviation. The way this chart works is you're looking at a bell curve coming out of the screen and going back in. Does that make sense? So this is instead of drawing the bell curve like this, they just tipped it up so they could stack a bunch of them on the same page. So this is the mean. This is one standard deviation. This is 2. That's the whole range. So this is one standard deviation for number 14, which comes from good bacteria. Good bacteria. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 standard deviations out of range. That's way too much bacteria. That's going to affect his brain or her brain. And every system in his body. He's not going to feel good. Something's wrong. Goes to the medical doctor, blood test, perfectly fine. Here's a referral to a psychologist or a counselor, whatever. The point is there's something wrong. This is the best way to measure it. Okay? The organic acid test. And this is just the first page. There's 3 more pages that we use with lots of other good data on here. Okay? Probably over the last 5 years, I've probably seen 600 of these tests. I mean, we do a lot of them, don't we, Grace? Lots of them. Every week, a few, 10 of them go out the office. So this is the best test. The point is that we have to take care of our gut to take care of our brain. When we get the gut microbes correct, we're going to see changes on anxiety, mood, how you think, your pain sensation. And this is what the research has been and will continue to show, is the tight connection between our gut and our brain. It's like one system, okay? The brain sits like locked away in an ivory tower, like behind two big gates. The first gate is the gut. The second gate is a blood-brain barrier. So to change the brain, it's really hard to just give someone something for the brain and say, hey, that'll be fine. You have to think about how it goes through the gut, whether it gets into your body well or not, and then once it's in your body, how well it gets to the brain. And that's the kind of work we do, and it's rewarding because it's more effective. And so a couple more things, and then we'll take questions. But I've mentioned melatonin. Again, melatonin is found in single-cell organisms. It's found in herbs and plants. And there's 400 times more melatonin in our gut than our brain. When you take melatonin, it doesn't go in your brain and make you sleepy. It shuts off your adrenal glands, turns down the volume on your adrenal glands, which helps you sleep. And I didn't know that. I thought it just somehow magically made you tired. But maybe that is magic, if it turns down your adrenal glands. But this is blue light and the destruction of melatonin. So as we look at our screen tonight, we're roasting melatonin. These lights, they're just sizzling the melatonin through our retina into our back of our brain. So we should all be like movie stars and just wear like giant, dark glasses and, be weird. But if you're weird that way, at least you're taking care of your melatonin, right? I say that somewhat in jest, but here's a problem that I have. I have a problem with it's 10:30 at night, it's time to go to bed. You go into your bedroom, you walk into your master bath, and you turn the light on, and you stand in front of a mirror with 6 lights shining into your face. It's like you're getting ready for a Broadway play or some, TV show. Do you need that much light? Do you have to pick every pore in your face at 10:30 at night? Maybe you should do it in the morning, right? I'm sorry. It's just I'm thinking like, what are we doing, So I'll walk into the bathroom like this, grab my toothbrush, and go in the closet and turn the light off and brush my teeth. But if you're not weird, you're not, who wants to be normal? But the point is, there's a reason why, okay? Protect your eyes from blue light. Get a blue light device on your screens, your handhelds. There's filters on, I think the app I'm not an Apple guy, but I know Apple has like a nighttime setting. You can set it to go like all day long. I think the new Samsungs do. So the technology's catching up. But blue light is just this wavelength is horrible for your melatonin. It like grills it and sizzles it and microwaves it to pieces, destroys it. So we want this, just be aware of that. I've used this diet hundreds of times. This is the SIBO FODMAP diet. There are books, seminars, there's all these seminars like the expos online where they have like one expert for 1 hour and there's like 50 people talk and I'm not the only person who has this information. I just like stuff to be simple. If I can make it simple, then I'm going to do it that way. Dr. Seebecker, she put this diet together and shared it with everybody, so it's been really useful for us. It's color-coded, and it gives you some ideas of what's approved when you're trying to deal with specific carbohydrate diet. So this is really important for SIBO. When you have too much bacteria, it's very important. It's more strict. It's more challenging to get rid of excess bacteria than it is to get rid of excess fungus. Okay, so in terms of what's harder to get rid of, SIBO, too much bacteria, takes a more strict diet, a more strict protocol, than getting rid of Candida by itself. Okay? So this is a good place to start. If you just look up, well, I don't have her name on there. I guess it is down here, Dr. Seebecker. If you search for her, she shares this freely. It's great. And we've handed it out to 500 people. And it's works about 95% of the time. That's a pretty good ratio. But keep this in mind too. This is another group of people called Breaking the Vicious Cycle. And they have so much more information. So whereas this is simplified, this is the opposite. This gives you ideas of how to make your own coconut milk, how to make your own bone broth, because people who are eating almond milk and coconut milk and bone broth who have SIBO, they're getting all this guar gum and all these additives in the products, and it's bloating them out. So they're like, great, I can't even have that anymore. I'm just going to eat chicken and green beans for the rest of my life. You know, it's kind of depressing. You only have like 4 foods you can eat. So we've seen good results with breaking the vicious cycle. It's a lot more in-depth, takes more legwork, but some people like to cook and do it this way. And so this gives my patients a lot of great ideas on how to eat and select food that helps them heal their gut while we're doing a protocol so that they're not starving. Yeah? It's one way. The best way to win friends is to take food away from people. They love you for that, right? And then I would say the Candida diet, again, as I mentioned, we have a handout in our office that's pages long, kind of simplifies and summarizes things. Candida, in my opinion, is easier to get rid of. You have a little bit broader choices on your diet when you're getting rid of Candida than you are trying to get rid of SIBO. SIBO's tough. You got to be willing to go toe-to-toe with like a strict diet for 4, 6 weeks, maybe 8 weeks. But it makes such a big difference, people stick with it. Candida, not quite, you don't have to be quite as strict. And so again, recommended steps. So I recommend learning as much as you can, watching videos like this, coming to lectures, learning. Have someone do an exam on you, figure out where the problems are. You know, look at your reflexes, try to figure out which systems in your body are working well, which are not. You'd be surprised sometimes people come in with a headache and it's actually a kidney problem. They come in with a back problem and it's actually a gallbladder issue. We've seen that dozens and dozens of times. And so we have a system in our office to figure that out. Whoever you're working with hopefully does. Urine or stool testing. So I'd say urine is more important. If I had one test to choose, the organic acid test is the best. Sometimes we need to do stool testing. There's a really good lab in Georgia called, what's their name, DSL? So Diagnostic Solutions Lab. And they have a stool test. It's world class. It tests like all these different helminths, worms, parasites, stuff you might pick up on a trip that nobody tests for anymore, or they don't seem to. So of all the functional medicine tests, the DSL labs is the best stool test that I've seen. We sometimes do that. So that helps us identify and measure the problem before we start making, hey, you got to change your life. You got to give up all the foods you like and take a bunch of gross tasting supplements. Most of the time people would like to see a test that makes it really, really clear why they need to do that. Herbs, vitamins, supplements, again, on a person-by-person basis, they're necessary. We have to kill bugs. We have to kill Candida. We have to kill bacteria. It will not go away on its own. That's been my experience. You could maybe get there. It may take you years of starving Candida. But if you do bug killers and herbs that help kill Candida, grapefruit seed extract, uva ursi, usnea lichen, berberine, oregano, on and on and on. We do these in really specific ways. You get there a lot faster. And so then a diet plan also to go with it. So that's all for my chat tonight. I appreciate your time and attention. And
Thank you.
Yeah. Be happy to answer any questions you guys have about anything or, yes, sir.
Is there a lab in Boise that can do this urine test with all the detail?
There is no lab in Boise that will give you this printout. It's important, without getting into too much detail, this type of test was originally made for children who are born with some severe genetic problem and the hospital couldn't figure it out. And so they give you like this really black and white, like long list, and these are in there, but this has made it so easy. This is in Kansas City. So if we only had Boise to work with, we could kind of figure it out, but this lab has just done a much better job, and it's way less expensive too, probably. Good question. Yeah. Other questions or comments about anything gut, brain related, or yes?
So your bioterrain testing doesn't really check for SIBO versus the Candida?
That is not a test that we can do in-house. So the question was, so if somebody comes in who has a cancer problem, and they are maybe they want to do the traditional cancer route, but they also want to change their body so that they can change the chemistry of their body so that they would stop that process and help get them on the road to recovery faster. We do a test that looks at blood, urine, and saliva in the office, and it helps with pH, it helps with nutritional balance, inflammation, detox markers. But to be able to test these things, this is a highly complex, like PhD level lab. And so that is one challenge, I suppose, of being in practice. Not every doctor wants to do tests, and sometimes doctors do too many tests. Sometimes they go, oh, you have all these problems. We're going to do this test, this test, this test, and that test. It'll be $1,700, and in 4 weeks, I'll tell you something that can help you. It's like, well, I like to think that when we know the science a little better, just talking to somebody, we can start to figure out things that can help them. But there's so many tells or so many giveaways about what SIBO is that very often we don't even do this test. We just start people on it. But I prefer, especially with distance patients, I mean, we have 1,000 people that we work with over the phone that we never get to see. So we have to do a test. But when we see people in person, it's a case-by-case basis. It's a good question. Any other comments or questions? Did you learn something tonight? Good. Melatonin is your friend. Yes?
One more, when you had the bell curve again. That one right there. What's the tachycardia?
Tachycardia is a fancy word for rapid pulse. High blood pressure, an irritated heart, like arrhythmia. That should also be up there, probably. So adrenaline, if you give someone dopamine in the emergency room, it speeds up the beating of their heart. If you give someone adrenaline in the emergency room with an EpiPen, it speeds up their heart. So you're just going to have the same, when someone has too much dopamine, they're going to have too many, or the dopamine is going to be influenced, like their cardiovascular system too much. It's going to mess with their sleep. You're just going to see all their symptoms are going to line up under that category, or most of them. So yeah, I mean, this thing is gold. It helps. It helps people, man. Every day we use this curve. So we can figure out who needs B vitamins, who needs to be stimulated, and then who needs to be calmed down. Because some people go, oh, I'm really stressed out. I'm anxious and I'm tired. I don't sleep a lot. And so I'm going to go take more B vitamins and some ginseng and, have some coffee because it helps me stay focused. Well, all they're doing is making their problem worse. That approach is really good for someone over here. But this person who's really stressed out and just sleeping 2 hours a night, 2.5 hours a night, and they're just loaded with dopamine. They need CBD oil, melatonin, L-theanine, niacinamide. We have a whole protocol that we use to just load. Everything just kind of calms down their system. Yes, sir?
Catecholamine is equal to dopamine?
Yes. So that's in the research, again, catecholamine is like the scientific name of dopamine and adrenaline or epinephrine and norepinephrine.
Okay.
Yes, sir.
Okay.
Yes, sir. The umbrella label, I guess. Any other questions? Yes.
There is a test that can determine your levels then?
For this? Yes. So, and no. And the reason why is this. So you can't, this next page of this test shows you your dopamine level in the urine. And it shows you your serotonin level in the urine. But we just learned that 95% of your serotonin is in your gut. So how much of what is in the urine is really from your brain? So we have to take the data from a test and then combine that with, history. Patients know what's wrong. They tell you what's wrong through their symptoms. So if somebody does a test in the urine and their serotonin is 0, they don't have any in their gut. They don't have any in their brain. I can guarantee you. They're probably going to be constipated, right? So remember, serotonin being high means diarrhea. Low serotonin equals constipation. There's a high correlation between people who are depressed and constipated. So we have to take the total person. I mean, sometimes it's an easy one. Wow, your dopamine is 6 times higher than normal, and you're having panic attacks, you're agoraphobic, and you're sleeping 2 hours a night. Well, that's easy. That's a softball. But here's the way you figure it out. If you think you're on this end of the spectrum and you take melatonin every waking hour and you sleep 18 hours a day, you're not on that end of the spectrum, right? If it makes you really drowsy and that wasn't the right thing for you, so just give that to somebody else in your family who needs it, or just put it aside, and then you get on this type of a protocol. See, that's the nice thing about natural medicine, right? I mean, I don't want to stand up here and, be rude or just kind of badmouth other people, because they're going to work trying to do their job just like I do. But if I mess up, someone gets a headache, someone sleeps too much or has a bad night of sleep. If a surgeon messes up, you see, it's a different game. And we get to be a little more, I don't want to say cavalier, but we get to be a little more creative with how we use tools that are safe, whereas medicine it is life or death so often. So, that's the difference, just a different way to think. Melatonin isn't going to put anybody in the hospital. I mean, maybe one out of 5 million people who take it for some reason, but no one is going to have so we just have to play the game of, this seems like this is mainly what it is. We'll do a therapeutic trial. If it makes the patient better, then we're right. If the patient gets worse, we're wrong. We're not bad people. And we'll do our very best to correct course and go in the other direction and see what happens. I've been very fortunate that patients have, I don't think I've ever had anybody give me a hard time for practicing that way. People appreciate the effort, I think. Any other questions? Yes?
What other hormones are tested in the organic acids test?
So the organic acid test, the only thing it's going to test hormone-wise is adrenaline, norepinephrine, and dopamine, serotonin, and that's all that that's all they're getting from their urine sample. There's also the Dutch test that have you heard of the Dutch test before? Dutch test is dried urine testing comprehensive hormones, and that is the other most amazing test for hormones that exists. And it tests probably, I don't know how much it would cost to go to a lab like LabCorp and say, Mr. Phlebotomist, these are the tests I want. It's 40 numbers long, probably $3,000 worth of blood test. But if you test it in your urine, it's $250. I mean, it is like incredible data. It shows you, anybody with a history of breast cancer issues, we're using it to treat acne now, much better. So for that specific question on hormones, the Dutch test is your best test. But I can guarantee you, without a 100% guarantee, this individual with this organic acid test will have a hormone problem. If you fix the gut, it will help their hormone problem. In fact, it might make it go away completely. So we do this first. There'd be no sense in me testing the hormones and trying to balance estrogen and thyroid if this is what their gut looked like. Because this is primary. This is the foundation. You don't want to remodel the third floor of a 5-story building if the foundation isn't square and the roof has leaks in it. It's like, come on, I like remodeling kitchens. That's what I do. Okay, well, then you wait until it's time to remodel a kitchen, then you remodel the kitchen. You don't rip the roof off, put a new kitchen in before the new roof is on. We would never do that in real life, would we? Or you'd be a fool if you did, right? But in functional medicine and practice, people do that. They say, I like kitchens and I like bathrooms. I'm the kitchen bathroom guy or gal. Well, okay, good. You need a good kitchen and bathroom, but have you thought about the roof, the walls, the windows, the foundation? So, we're all out there trying to, if you're trying to help people and you're working to help people get better, then we all work for the same boss. How does that sound? I like that phrase. So, any other questions? Well, thanks for your time and attention tonight, everybody. Thanks so much for watching. You've made it through the video. Hopefully there's some information here that you can relate to your own life, to your friends, family. I'm just basically sharing with you everything we use in our practice. I don't believe that healthcare should be something that you always have to pay a ton of money to get the information you need. I'd like to get all the information we can out there for free. And that's part of what this YouTube project is all about. So if you like this video, if you like our channel and the information we have, get yourself a copy of this book. But even more than that, if you're somebody out there who's looking for help for yourself, for a loved one, for a friend or family member, you reach out to us. We have a clinic that serves people from over 20 different countries. And we have people traveling from Europe, traveling from all over the United States to see us in person. And we also do work over the internet through a telemedicine practice. So Red Mountain Natural Medicine is the name of our office here in Boise. And if you like what's on this video and you need some help yourself, please reach out. We'd love to hear from you, and we'll figure out a way to help you get the help you need. Thanks so much, and have an excellent day.